Capricorn isn't a lover that you choose. They choose you. Usually when they choose you, it's for life. The master manifestor that we know as Ciara, who can just pray a prayer and have her life completely be changed, is the one who actually brought these two together. So you know, when Ciara manages to get herself out of a bad situation into an amazing situation, and she moves on from there to get you connected with somebody else in love, then there's a lot of good expectations, good vibes riding on that. So let's go ahead and look at DK Metcalf, Normani's chart. He is a Sagittarius. She is a Gemini. He has his moon in Cancer. She has her moon in Scorpio. He has his Mercury in Sagittarius. She has hers in Taurus. He has his Venus in Aquarius. She has hers in Gemini. He has his Mars in Capricorn. She has hers in Taurus. She has her Jupiter in Capricorn. He has his Jupiter in Aquarius, right? He has his Saturn in Aries. So it's really good that he's a football player, because Aries excels in the world of sports, okay? If you have an Aries child, sun, moon, or rising, or if you yourself are an Aries sun, moon, or rising, one of the things that you can do that will drastically change your life in terms of speeding up your manifestations is exactly that, getting physically active. Aries is ruled by Mars, the planet of war. So when an Aries is physically active, everything that they wants them faster, because everything with Aries involves speed. It's about speed, it's about energy, it's about believing in yourself and going to get it. So him having Saturn in Aries requires that discipline, that drive. So that's really good. Look at that. She also has her Saturn in Aries, and hers is at the 5th degree, which is the fame degree. So her being in the limelight, being a musical artist, being somebody who made such a sultry, beautiful video, from what I understand, when he saw that video of her, he immediately knew that was going to be his wife. Tom Cruise and Katie had a similar energy. She stated before that she had a picture of Tom Cruise in her room since she was like a teen, and she was obsessed with him, and she knew that one day he was going to be her husband. This is what manifestation is, right? And look at that. They ended up getting together and making a child together. Yes, the relationship didn't end up lasting, but it still happened. And very few people can say they've been able to successfully manifest somebody that they basically were like obsessed over. So when he saw that video of her called Motivation, he immediately was drawn to her, and he immediately knew that was going to be his wife. And like a typical Sagittarius, he shot his shot, and here they are now engaged. And this picture right here is a photo shoot that they did for Vogue magazine, in celebration of their engagement. His Uranus is in Aquarius. Hers is also in Aquarius. His Neptune is in Capricorn. Hers is also in Capricorn. His Pluto is in Sagittarius. Hers is also in Sagittarius. What does that tell you? That these two are karmics, meaning these two have done this number before, this love number before. They've been lovers before in a previous life, and they have decided to do it again. Now, let's see whether their placements are compatible apples to apples. Sagittarius Sun and Gemini Sun are compatible 50% of the time, because they are what we call sister signs in astrology. Sister signs are basically two sides of the same coin. It's basically the same energy expressed at two levels or two ends of an extreme. While Gemini rules the lower mind in astrology, which is more earthly matters, more concrete information, Sagittarius rules the higher mind, which is more spiritual matters, more non-tangible information. The trick with sister signs is for them to actually come together as one and see each other's strengths as an asset, not as a threat. Because when sister signs are unevolved, what they do naturally, whether they're evolved or unevolved, let me clarify, what they do naturally is expose each other's shadows, because they're so much alike. You know how you can be so much like somebody else that any little changes between the two of you feels like big, feels major, because your similarities are so flagrant? It's the same thing. When you're so similar to somebody, it can feel like you almost want to attack the things that make you different, because you're so much alike that you feel immediately at home with each other. And that's kind of what happens with sister signs, is that they're so similar that if they haven't done any healing work, if they haven't worked on anything emotional, spiritual. They haven't done any shadow work. They have no awareness of their triggers or traumas. What happens is that they project their issues onto one another. Even though they're both perfectly fine the way that they are, they can, make a mountain out of a molehill. Are these two compatible with the sun? A little bit, okay? It depends on how they choose to manage their ego. The sun in astrology is about the ego. So ego requires management. We cannot live our lives from our ego. A life led by ego is hardly ever a fulfilling, satisfying life. And when we're trying to do relationship, partnership, love relationship, it requires sharing. So that means we can't expect other people to be like us, to think like us, to be an exact mirror of us, because the whole point of the relationship is for us to learn them and for them to learn us. So in a relationship, we come to share energy. We don't come to look for a replica of ourselves. Okay? So assuming they have an understanding of that, which both Gemini and Sagittarius are very intelligent people in general. So I'm sure that's going to be very helpful for them in managing some of that. Okay? Moving on to moon placement. His moon is in Cancer. Hers is in Scorpio. I love this energy. Water moons are perfect together. I love water moons together because there's no tension, there's no confusion, there's just clarity. They're both sensitive, they're both emotional, they're both emotionally reactive. It's perfect, It's helpful in relationships when you can speak the same emotional language. And I like to see couples who speak the same emotional language. It's not just that they both have a water moon. It's also because one is fixed and the other is mutable. When it comes to placements, we run into issues when signs have the same quality. Two fixed signs of the moon, even though they're both watery, is always going to be an issue. But when you have fixed and mutable, or you have cardinal and mutable, or cardinal and fixed, it's a lot more like fluid energy, which makes this, connection very, very strong. Moving on to Mercury, he has his Mercury in Sagittarius. So he has Sagittarius Sun, Sagittarius Mercury, and Sagittarius Pluto. So he is a Sagittarius stellium, which makes him very fun to be around. Him having his Mercury in Sagittarius at the Cancer degree makes him an excellent emotional communicator, which vibes really well with her Taurus Mercury at the Taurus placement. So she doesn't say things that she doesn't mean, and she's very serious about the words that she uses to speak. He's a little bit more explorational with his communication. He's a little bit more of the type to throw things out there to see how they land, to try different things, to think outside the box, to open her up to new concepts, new philosophies, new religions, new ways of looking at the world. Sagittarius Mercury is going to be a lot more eclectic. I recently made a video about Cardi B and Offset, because Offset is also a Sagittarius stellium with Sagittarius Mercury. If you're interested in their astrological, love compatibility, you can go check that out. Sagittarius Mercury, generally when they're healthy, they're a lot of fun, and I think he might be a lot more chatty than she is, but she does have that Gemini sun, so I think it doesn't get to be too much. Venus, his is an Aquarius. Venus in Aquarius is traditionally very, very loyal once they find somebody that they love, because Venus in Aquarius falls in love around values, around ethics, around ways of looking at the world, around a common goal or a common mission. So Venus being in Aquarius is a really, really good placement, because these people, once they commit, they really commit, okay? Because they don't just commit because of a feeling, they commit because of a bigger picture. They commit because they see a future with you, and they see a future where you both can change the world together. So Venus, when it is placed at Aquarius, is definitely very invested in building a future. They don't take love lightly. It's not something they do because they're bored, because in general, Venus in Aquarius does not like commitments. They prefer keeping relationships loose, okay? Moving on to her Venus placement. Hers is in Gemini. Venus in Gemini is very compatible with Venus in Aquarius. So again, we have another example of a fixed sign and a mutable sign, and they're both air Venus signs. The only concern I have about two air Venus signs is, you know how air is, right? It's not very stable in general. Air likes to move around. It doesn't stay in one place for too long. So my only concern with Venus air placements is that these people typically don't do very well in long-term monogamy. It's just not in their nature. And it doesn't mean that they don't want it. It doesn't mean they don't like it. It just means they get easily bored when they're in a relationship. He may get a little less bored than her if she's able to entertain him intellectually, which obviously with our Gemini sun, she's very smart. And with her, Scorpio moon, she's very deep. And with her, Taurus Mercury, she's very grounded. So I see her being able to keep him intellectually stimulated, which is what this placement is going to require. She has a Gemini Venus, rather, at the Aries degree. Gemini Venus needs a lot of stimulation in the physical realm. So earlier I mentioned that Gemini rules the lower mind. It means Gemini is more interested in the physical realm. So when you're Gemini Venus, monogamy is... feels like hardcore labor. It feels like hardcore labor when you do not have a partner who's exciting, who is fun, who can fly by the seat of their pants, who's always traveling, who wants to do inquisitive things, who's curious to discover the world around them, who's not trying to get into a monotonous way of doing life. Venus in Gemini requires a lot of stimulation. With him being a football player, he obviously has a lot of energy, and being a Sagittarius stellium, he certainly can keep up with her. The other thing I want to mention with them is what's going on here with all of their karmic placements. They both have their Pluto at Sagittarius. Hers is in Aries and his is in Virgo degrees. They both have their Neptune at Capricorn. So if they do this right, they're supposed to be together forever. So when you have Capricorn at the Venus, you're very specific about your dreams. You're very serious about them, and you're willing to work on them for a long period of time. So if these two get married, I don't see them marrying other people. I see them staying with each other until they die. The other thing is their Uranus. They both have the same Uranus placement. Hers is at the Cancer degree, which is very maternal placement, and his is again at the Virgo degree, which is health and wellness and daily routine. So I think they're going to bring a lot of comfort to each other. The more they invest in their home life, the more they start to build their family together. I think they're going to bring a lot of grounding energy to each other, which is going to make their commitment to each other take even more deeper roots. Moving on to Saturn, which is the last karmic placement. As you know, Saturn is the planet of karma in astrology. His is at the Aries degree and hers is at the Leo degree. So again, very compatible here. These two have done this love thing before, and it's looking like they have lessons to teach each other about being committed while being free. That's really what this dance is going to be about. How can we do marriage on our terms? How can we do marriage in a way that is fun, that is not boring, that is not, like the way our parents did it? And when I think about the fact that Ciara is the one that brought them together, it makes sense because Ciara and Russell are an atypical couple in the sense that you can tell that they're insistent on making their marriage fun. So these two are basically looking for that same kind of energy when it comes to marriage. They want marriage, but they don't want it to feel like a prison and one that feels free-spirited. So overall, for Normani and DK, it's looking pretty good. So let me look at some of the most challenging aspects in their relationship. So the first one is him having a Sagittarius sun and her having a Gemini Venus. As you know, Sagittarius and Gemini are sisters. In astrology, sisters are what we consider in opposition because there are on two sides of this same axis, so same spectrum. So when you have zodiac signs that are opposite or in opposition, yes, there's going to be attraction, but there's also going to be stagnation because they're so different, even though they're also very, very similar. So a lot of times when sister signs date each other, it almost feels like you have to go against your own sense of self in order to make the relationship work because you're so different. As an example, Sagittarius is the explorer of the zodiac. They like to have fun. They like to be non-committal. They like to see the world. They like to travel. Gemini is also a zodiac sign that likes to have fun, that likes to be childlike, that likes to travel, learn new languages, discover new things. But Sagittarius is in fact a lot more loyal than Gemini in terms of like being grounded. Okay. Sagittarius is in fact a lot less interested in having no roots. So Sagittarius can't function as well when they're not rooted in something. And Gemini excels when they have no roots. Do you see what I mean? So both are into exploring, but Sagittarius is more inclined to be a homebody than Gemini, depending on what their moon sign is looking like. Lucky for these two, he has a Cancer moon, so he's very homey. She has a Scorpio moon, so she's very possessive, and I think this is going to work really well. But in general, if we're just looking at ego, which is really lack of like emotional awareness, lack of emotional development, it's going to be challenging having an opposition between Sagittarius and Gemini. The second placement that would be difficult for them is his Jupiter in Aquarius. Jupiter in astrology rules luck, it rules abundance, it rules expansion, and hers is her Mercury in Taurus, okay? What that means is that there's going to be some communication problems because Taurus is fixed and Aquarius is fixed. When you have the same type of energy with zodiac signs, it gets tricky. You know, two fixed signs together is always going to be problematic. What you want is fixed with mutable, you know, or mutable with cardinal, but you don't want two fixed together at the same placement. You don't want two mutable or two cardinal. When you have the same quality, that's what we call it in astrology, quality. When you have the same quality between two signs, you're going to run into an issue. So communication issues are going to be common for these two. Jupiter is very good at seeing the truth in situations. Him being a Sagittarius stellium is going to help him understand what she's communicating. You know, it's going to be helpful for him to be able to slow down and hear her thoughts, because she's going to be a lot more slow of a communicator than he is. You know, one of the things that I would discourage against is trying to get each other to think differently. And, you know, because the minute they start getting into power struggles and trying to like dominate one another and trying to make it seem like one person's ideas are not as good as the other, and basically the judging, the power moves, they're trying to make somebody subordinate to you in the relationship. You know, when we communicate in relationships with the intent of asserting dominance, we basically erode at intimacy. We erode at trust, and we erode togetherness. Because relationships are not about dominating, they're about collaborating. So even though their ideas might be different, it doesn't necessarily mean that one is bad and one is good, okay? His Jupiter in Aquarius is going to be an issue with their communication. Generally, Aquarius and Taurus don't get along very well as zodiac signs because Taurus is also earthy. Earthy people are very interested in earthy matters. Okay? Taurus wants to talk about what's tangible, what's concrete, what they can touch, what they can see, what they can feel. And Aquarius wants to talk about the future. Aquarius is from the future. Aquarius wants to talk about concepts, ideas, the unknown, spirituality, you know, magic, science. As you can see, all of that is very different. So again, relationships require collaboration, and this is something they're going to have to work on. His Jupiter in Aquarius also conflicts with her Mars in Taurus. Here you may have, you know, there are instincts and impulse. The instincts and impulses that she may have about his ideas about the world, you know, they might run into some issues with that, okay? See, Taurus is very domineering, okay? When Taurus is at Mars, even more so. You know, Taurus doesn't play footsies. When they want something, when they know something to be true, when they're confident in something, Taurus is very forthright. Taurus is very aggressive. Taurus is very commanding. So Taurus energy at the Mars may be interested in reaching out to their partner to, you know, basically assert themselves, assert their opinions, assert their understanding as facts. And Jupiter, you know, being the largest planet in our solar system, may have a harder time being led by Taurus Mars because Jupiter is removed from the light. You know, Jupiter is one of those planets that is in the darkness. The last 4 planets in our solar system, like Jupiter, Saturn, you know, all of our outer planets, that's why we call them outer planets, okay? communal planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, Neptune. These planets are away from the sun, okay? The further away your planet is from the sun, the more of a wide view you have of situations. The closer your planet is to the sun, the harder it is for you to see your shadows and to see outside of the sun. So Jupiter in Aquarius can run into conflict with Mars in Taurus because Jupiter can see the big picture and Taurus is focused on the concrete, what's tangible, what's real, what's right underneath their nose. Taurus is not interested in exploring things that are not concrete, that are not tangible, and that are not rooted in the physical realm. So that's the other thing that makes this arrangement challenging. Lastly, his Saturn in Aries is going to have some issues with her Jupiter in Capricorn. Saturn considers Jupiter to be dreamy, okay? And to not be practical. You know, Saturn is the largest planet in our solar system. There is an element of dreamy energy to Sagittarius. They think big, they dream big, they have big goals, big plans, and they go for them. Saturn likes to go for plans that are calculated meticulously. And Saturn likes precision in the calculation. Jupiter, on the other end, doesn't ask of precision. It asks that you believe and that you be willing to throw yourself into it fully. So this combination can be difficult, especially because it's Aries and Capricorn, you know. Saturn in Aries is very action-oriented. They want to go get it. They want to go do it. Saturn in Aries learns their lessons through trial and error. Saturn in Aries is not very interested in heeding, you know, guidance or advice from others because they only teach themselves via experiences. Because that's the energy of Aries. If an Aries wants to know how life works, they go out there and they live it. They don't go in the library to read about it. They don't spend hours thinking about it. They come up with a plan and they do it. Sometimes they don't even come up with a plan. They're just given to the moment, hoping to learn what they need to learn from the experience. So Saturn in Aries is in opposition to Jupiter in Capricorn because these two are cardinals. Cardinal zodiac signs are leaders, meaning that they have a sense of direction, have an internal compass, know what they want, and tend to go for what they want quickly. So these two signs are very, very different in the way that the planets function, you know, one being very like meticulous and one being not really concerned about the details. You know, that's Jupiter, not concerned about the details. Saturn, very meticulous. And then Aries being more action-oriented and Capricorn being more contemplative. And again, the third layer of this is that they're both cardinals. When you have zodiac signs that have the same disposition, fix, cardinal, mutable, you're going to run into some issues because they're too similar, okay? Now, does that mean they cannot work through these things and overcome them? No, it doesn't mean that. It just means these are areas of growth that they need to be aware of so that they can work on bettering themselves for the sake of the relationship. Now let's move on to the loving aspects between them. Now that I've gotten all the difficult things out of the way, and as you can see, it's not really that much difficulty, right? It's just about keeping an open mind and understanding that they each have a different approach to life, to thinking about the world, and it's okay. Different doesn't mean bad, and that is the whole point of a relationship, so that we can learn to share energy and learn to experience life through the eyes of another. So now on to the exciting things. He has his Venus in Aquarius and she has her Pluto in Sagittarius. There's warmth in this relationship. You know, he's able to see the light that she brings to his world. She literally transforms his world and blows it up in the best way possible. You know, she invites him to change his personality for the better, to stop being pessimistic, to, you know, embrace simplicity and to be a little bit more confident about having the attention, having eyes on them, to be, you know, comfortable in their fame because they both have that at the Aries degree. So there's a lot of desire here to take the initiative, to do new things, to get the recognition. You know, they encourage each other to make the significant changes that they need to make in their personality in order for them to grow, to move forward, and to become a more powerful couple. Aquarius and Sagittarius are naturally compatible. So when looking at these two, this is a beautiful energy. It's perfect mix because Pluto, when Pluto is gelling well with your Venus sign, it means this is a kind of love that's going to transform your soul. It's not just about the commitment of marriage. It's not just about filling out the paperwork. It's literally a soulful experience that these two are going to be going on, for the rest of their lives. Okay. Now, let's move on to other aspects that they're experiencing that bring joy and love to this relationship. Let's look at the passion between them. This couple, although Sagittarius and Gemini are very similar, usually these two, when it comes to passion, are like a house on fire. So at first, when they meet each other, they're crazy about each other. The intensity is wild. And then over time, that passion burns down some. And it's really about them learning how to keep that energy going intellectually, because those two are intellectuals. That those two cannot do love without intelligence. So the physical passion is great, but they have to develop their intellectual and their spiritual passion together, because ultimately that's what's going to keep their relationship going. Okay. He has his Venus in Aquarius. She has her Pluto in Sagittarius. And as I already mentioned, this is like magic. This is really a gift from the universe in terms of making their relationship even more beautiful than it needs to be, because it's not just about the relationship itself. It's about cultivating their souls and creating a fertile ground upon which they can transform themselves to bring each other more in union with the self and with one another. His Venus in Aquarius goes really well also with her Uranus in Aquarius. So they're both very forward thinking. They're both very strong-minded. They're both really take responsibility for the kind of love that they want to have. He admires that she's original, that she's unusual, she's unconventional. They're each learning something new about each other every day. There's really like an enigmatic energy between them, like almost electricity, because it's Aquarius and Aquarius together. When you have Venus, being in conjunction with Uranus in Aquarius, you're going to get, it's like an electric jolt that they're both experience. The attraction can probably feel a little too intense for them, but now that they're looking to get married, they're going to have to manage that energy over time, because it's truly quite magical what they feel for each other. When Venus aligns really well with Uranus, as well as Pluto, as well as Capricorn, it's going to bring with it like a poetic quality. There's something magical. There's something artistic. There's something ordained. There's something divine. There's something artsy. There's something fascinating. There's something dreamy about this kind of love that feels like a breath of fresh air. And it also feels like work at the same time, but it doesn't make you feel like you're drowning in work. It's almost like the more work you put in, the better it feels, which is pretty special, because for most people, that's not how love goes. Most people come to love with very delusional ideas about what it is. And when they have to put in work, they almost associate having to work with something negative. And in this case, the work that these two are putting in is actually quite rewarding to their souls. The very last placement here that makes this companionship beautiful is Mars in Capricorn, okay? And her Neptune in Capricorn. This is beautiful balance again. He is very physical. He plays football. Mars rules sexuality, which I'm sure she appreciates that energy from him. And it's almost like every time they're intimate, like he takes her to a new realm, a new portal. Like it's not just about the physical, it's about something spiritual. Like their souls become intertwined with every like physical act that they share together. Sometimes she feels like he's moving a little too fast because he's very purposeful, very directed, very driven. And, he can be very aggressive. Again, he's a football player. And it's not necessarily that she's trying to change him, but, Mars is all about desire. Mars is all about being hungry for life and wanting to go after your dreams. And Neptune is about the dream aspect of life without the physical demands of it. So it's kind of like Pisces and Capricorn complement each other very well spiritually, because Pisces is the only zodiac sign who was able to take Capricorn to deeper places within themselves. So her having her Neptune in Capricorn and him having that on Mars means that when they're having issues in the relationship, he's very, even when he's not very good at explaining himself, explaining what's going on in the relationship, she's very good at psychically, intuitively knowing what the problem is. It's like she can read his mind. She can read his mind when he's bothered, when there's a problem, without him knowing how she does it. He doesn't know how she does it, but she's able to quickly understand what's wrong and quickly help him resolve what's wrong, and so that they can get back to feeling good again. Another thing that makes this relationship very beautiful is that they're not afraid of hard work. The two of them are not afraid of like uncomfortable conversation. They're not afraid of like the murkiness of emotions. They're not afraid of difficult, conversations. This is what I love about moon sign placements, is that they tend to get emotionally attached to one another when they're in love. And when something comes up in the relationship that doesn't gel well with them, when they're healthy, they're very good at digging in to get to the bottom of like, why did I feel that way? What was going on? They notice the subtle things about their partner, the little less things, and they're able to quickly understand emotionally what's happening with their partner, which is only going to help them get to the bottom of the problem. Her having a Taurus Mercury and him having a Sagittarius Mercury too means that they're both very expensive communicators. They don't say things just to say them. So when there's a problem, they're very focused on using the right words so that they can get to the bottom of it. So overall, I feel really good about this partnership. I think these two are going to do really well together. I hope they walk down that aisle. That's the only thing I'm concerned about, because typically Sagittarius and Gemini can be very changeable, very switchy. These two could be like very excited about each other one day, and then 6 months from now, it's like the luster has worn off and now they're bored. So I hope that's not the case here. I hope that these two are able to actually walk down that aisle and build this future that they've dreamt about together. I want to go over their north nodes, Lilith and Chiron. So his is in Virgo. So getting married is actually a beautiful idea for him. And he has that at the Leo degree. So if they do get married, it's going to be a very beautiful, lovely affair. He also has his Lilith in Virgo. So this marriage is also going to bring him in spiritual alignment, because Virgo, as the Virgin, actually does really well when she commits. Like Virgo struggles with marriage just like all the other mutable zodiac signs. But when she commits, Virgo is definitely very, very committed. His north node is at the 14th degree, which is Taurus. So he wants to create a stable home for himself, and he has that at Virgo. So financial stability, family stability is very important to him. Lilith in Virgo at the Leo degree, he's here to heal his relationship with fame. Obviously he plays football. He never wanted to be like a celebrity type. But this relationship is bringing him into this kind of energy. And this is something he has to work through, because that's a part of his journey. His Chiron is in Scorpio. So once he decides that he's going to be faithful to just one woman, I think that's actually going to open up a lot of spiritual portals for him, because Scorpio energy is all about creativity. It's all about birth and death. And someone that's handling their Scorpio energy in a good way, somebody that is healing their sexual trauma, somebody that's healing their relationship with spirituality, somebody that's healing their childhood trauma, and somebody that's healing their betrayal wounds. He has a lot of betrayal wounds from having Scorpio and Chiron, but lucky for him, she has Scorpio moon. So she is the right person to make him feel safe in that relationship. Additionally, her north node is in Libra. Again, speaking to this idea of marriage, hers is also at the 14th degree like him. So creating a stable home has always been something that she has desired. Her Lilith is in Cancer. This usually speaks to challenging relationship with a mother in one way or another, because his Lilith is in Virgo. Cancer and Virgo are very compatible in that regard. So this relationship is very healing for them too, in terms of creating a space that is sensitive and that feels emotionally safe, where they can both be vulnerable. Her Chiron is in Libra, meaning that even though she likes the idea of partnership and of relationship and of marriage, there is some anxiety here. People typically have Chiron in Libra, especially her having it at the Libra degree, or people who in the past have struggled with balance in relationship. It's either these people come to relationship to give their all, where they give even things they don't have. Basically, they think like, oh, a relationship is where I need to take care of my person. So whatever they want, whatever they need, I give it to them. It doesn't matter how I feel about it, what I want, what I need. And people who have Chiron in Libra are here to learn that a relationship is about give and take. Like, you can love somebody to pieces, but you should never be willing to give somebody your everything. You should keep some of it to yourself, because marriage doesn't mean that you become a slave. And I'm not saying that's what she thinks. I'm not saying that's what he wants. I'm saying people who have this placement, often when they get in relationship, they abandon themselves and they give their everything. And eventually they end up being resentful that they gave everything, and then they feel like the relationship is not worth it, not realizing that they went into it with an imbalanced point of view. So hopefully, because of the emotional safety and the intellectual curiosity the two of them have, he's going to be able to help heal some of that for her, in terms of letting her know that he's okay with her being who she is. That's the thing about Sagittarius as a zodiac sign. They don't want to control you. They don't care how you are, what you are, however you want to be. As long as you tell them honestly what you want, what you need, and how you're being. That's the thing about Sagittarius. They just want you to be honest, happy. The problem with Sagittarius is when you start lying, when you start holding things back, then the relationship is not going to work. And Libra, when they're in a low vibrational state, this is how they deal with uncomfortable things, is they lie. They lie, they avoid, they run away, they change words around to make things more palatable. And it's not because they're bad people, it's that they don't like conflict. They're very conflict avoidant. So that's going to be the main thing, to make sure that if there's a point of contention of conflict, that she's expressing herself, that she's asking for what she needs, and that she's leading with her emotions. With him having that Cancer moon, he's always going to be in tune with her. And if he loses that touch, she just needs to express her feelings and he's going to be right back to it. So if they're continuing to nurture each other emotionally and to be tender with each other, I think this relationship is a slam dunk. I see this relationship I see it being very, very successful. The last thing I want to mention about this couple that gives away at the fact that they're karmics is that her Gemini sun is at the Capricorn degree and his Sagittarius sun is also at the Capricorn degree. So that is the equivalent of two Capricorns being in a relationship. So in case you had any confusion, these two are karmic lovers through and through. These two have done this before, and him also have a karmic zodiac sign at his Venus. He's in an Aquarius Venus, which is a karmic zodiac sign. They've done this before. This is another round. Hopefully this time they can do it with more zest, more joy, more originality, more fun, more freedom. And there can be, two people that are in love in a committed relationship, but also have a lot of fun. It sounds like that's what they're looking for, because Libra needs levity in their relationship and Virgo just needs structure. So if she can provide that consistency, that kindness, that generosity, that, productive work that keeps their home life orderly, he will be able to provide her with the understanding, the space and the room for her to roam freely, to do the things that she wants. Because again, Sagittarius men in relationship are not looking to control you. They're just looking to be told the truth. They just want to be told the truth. And if you're a truthful lover, a Sagittarius is going to be a very good lover for you. So congratulations, Normani and DK. I wish you a million more years of love. You can book your astrology reading at intuitivehealing.com. You can also watch videos at Intuitive Healing here on YouTube for Astrology 101 content. Listen to the Aquarius podcast on Spotify, as well as here on YouTube for your horoscope. If you're interested in astrology and love connections, you can visit at Styled Under Libra. And of course, for health and wellness and holistic healing, visit at Styled Under Virgo for all of your astrology content. Thanks so much for watching.